We have a quorum. Welcome to the December 19th, 2018 Seattle School Board's legislative meeting. As we begin, the board would like to recognize and honor the first peoples of the Puget Sound territories by acknowledging that we are on the land of the coastal Salish tribes. Roll call, please.
Director Burke.
Here.
Director DeWolf.
Here.
Director Geary.
Here.
Director Mack.
Here.
Director Patu. Director Pinkham.
Present.
Director Harris.
Present. And Director Patu will be joining us later. She is at the signing ceremony for one of her very talented grandsons who is signing with Berkeley. I don't know quite why we can't keep the Patu grandchildren in the Husky football game, but such as it is. If everyone would please stand, if you so wish, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Someday. Tonight we have joining us the Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary Choir. I'd like to invite the directors to take a seat with me in the audience for this performance.
It's not on. Hi. Today we're doing I already would. Where's the melody?
thank you. That was awesome sauce. Outrageously good. Can you tell us who you are, how long you've taught, why this program, and then we're going to hand the mic throughout, and you can tell us your first name and your grade.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm Jamal White. I'm a vocal music teacher at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School. Thank you. Our principal, Dr. Thomas, is here. And this is my 6th year, and I just love these students. I'm just so honored to just, be able to teach. So, and here they are.
All at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Okay, so introduce yourselves, first name and your grade, and pass it on, okay? Thank you.
My name is Audie, and I'm in 4th grade. My name is Giselle, and I'm in 4th grade. Hi, my name's Kalina, and I'm in 3rd grade. Me? Okay. My name is Jennifer, and I'm in 4th grade.
My name is Michael, and I'm in 2nd grade. My name is Amira, and I'm in 3rd grade. My name is Alina, and I'm in 4th grade.
My name is Jabriana, and I'm in 3rd grade.
My name's Naira, and I'm in 3rd grade.
My name is Galila, and I'm in 4th grade.
My name is Dominic, and I am in 3rd grade.
My name is Kaylani, and my grade is in 1st grade.
My name is Lucy, and I am in 2nd grade.
Another round of applause. Thank you all for honoring us with your music. That was awesome sauce. Have a great holiday and a great winter break.
You too.
Okay then. Madam Superintendent, the floor is yours.
All right, that was awesome. I thought that was really great, enjoyable. Okay, so I visited 3 international schools 2 weeks ago. This is a Japanese class at McDonald. You'll notice I'm not raising my hand because I didn't know what was going on. Where's the rest of them? Oh, here we go. My tour guides from Hamilton International Middle School, they shared their perspectives while we visited classrooms. These were great student leaders in that school. On December 7th and 8th, I launched the first Superintendent Student Advisory Board. We have amazing, kind, smart students throughout our schools. I just keep thinking if we are producing students as bright and as capable as these are, we are doing pretty well. They had a conversation with Ronald Boy about a district dress code. Very smart, very insightful, very wise. This young student is telling me about her science project. These Maple students were so excited to tell me jokes. They had a lot of them. I think they were supposed to be reading, but I was way more fun for that class period. We shared a lot of funny stuff. Principal Goldberg shared how McDonald is building out a social justice international K-5 program. Principal Jones at John Stanford International. This school actually has probably the best view of any school in the town, in the city of Seattle. But her team, they are working very hard to create a more equitable system within their building. Principal Manza at Hamilton shared his team's work on global competency and social emotional learning for students during the advisory program. This is the librarian at John Stanford. She had a good friend, she knows a good friend of mine in Montana, and it continues to be such a small world as I travel around this great city. I was so impressed with Principal Lamb's work at Van Asselt. The staff at Van Asselt are focused on meeting the needs of each student and give a ton of their time to support all students. Jada led this group around Cleveland High School. She's the student in the red jacket. Cleveland just has such a strong leadership team under Principal Brayland. Their focus on growing staff and creating a pipeline there has led to a very, very diverse teaching staff. I think there are lessons there that we can all learn from across the district. Maple's success under this team, this is the administration team there, is really phenomenal. Principal Sanchez credits the staff's devotion to strong ties for instruction. Out in the community, I've spent a couple weeks now getting out and sharing what I learned during the listening and learning tour, and also speaking a little bit about the levies. Jake Wittenberg and I talked on King 5 Morning News one morning. I give a shout out to the Rainier Avenue Radio. I got interviewed by a vet there, and that was pretty phenomenal. Brandy Cruz and I talked on Q13. I met with Cairo radio host Dave Ross and Colleen O'Brien, and what I've learned through all this is people are very interested in what Seattle Public Schools are up to, but also that everyone in Seattle wants our students to be successful, and that's just really always a good platform to be on. Last, I was on a panel at GSBA New Voices in Leadership with Chief Best. So I want to thank Louise there for the invite to that group. It was a great turnout, probably about 300 people in the room talking about leadership and it was great to have a conversation about education system there too. So thank you.
Okay, and for those that are interested, we are back to doing Friday memos, and those will be posted on a regular basis. They will be weekly. They are not the 332-page Friday memos, but they are a version that will keep you posted as to what we're up to, what the superintendent is up to, and we believe in that transparency. So we are at board committee reports. Who would like to go first? Director Mack, have at it.
Good evening. I'll be brief. Much of what we had on December 6th, we have our last Ops Committee meeting. Much of what's on our agenda tonight for introduction we'll be discussing later, so I won't go into it. There are several items there, both projects that are moving through the process of approval, as well as the student assignment transition plan, transportation, boundaries. We also had discussion around planning for a community workforce agreement meeting sometime later. It's not been scheduled yet. The planning is ongoing. And continued conversation around capacity management, space available, policy and procedures updates. That work continues to be ongoing. And we are working on the annual work plan for next year for the committee. The BEX BTA Oversight Committee met on Friday. That was a really great meeting. We have new members since 1 month ago. And the focus of this meeting was racial equity. We had a training, a really wonderful presentation and thought-provoking, great conversation. Deborah Northern from our staff. It was a really productive way to spend our time and get focused on racial equity and how to ensure that that's being woven through the work that the committee is doing. So I look forward to having other committees also take that that training and do that, have that conversation. Let's see. Also, we also at Operations Committee meeting talked about got more information on the information that's going out about our levies, both the Programs and Operations levy as well as the BEX levy. We heard that all of the schools have gotten the map that shows all of the projects. And I've been in a couple schools this week, and they had it posted, so it was nice to see. So the information's getting out there on our levies that'll be on the ballot in February. And the next meeting for operations will be January 10th. I'll also go ahead and just move straight into legislative update. We had the opportunity to meet with many of our Seattle delegation last week. And a number of folks we hadn't seen in a while were there. It was a really productive conversation around our legislative agenda and what might be happening this year, what might not be happening. And just want to say a big thank you to everyone who attended and for working with us. And look forward to the session starting at the beginning of the new year.
Director Pinkham, Audit and Finance.
Tatsiaha, thank you. Audit and Finance, we had our last meeting on Monday, December 10th. We didn't have any bars, anything to address, but we are also always doing some very important work. We covered the annual hiring report and the annual financial report, and Desney had some lively conversation around the annual financial report when we're looking at the carryovers from year to year, and when we have some money that's we didn't all spend in this previous year and how it carries over. And Director Mack had some good questions and discussion that it'd be nice to have a little bit more information onto what items were being carried over, what did we able to cover this year, and what items are going forward for next year. So, and they agreed to bring us back that information so we can have more clarity on each carryover from the various budgets. As I said, it wasn't much of a meeting, but a lot of discussion. I will have more to share early on in this meeting about some completed audits. And so that's really basically what's happening in the A&F arena. I don't want to minimize budget, but we are working on the budget. That was another thing we had working sessions on for budgets as well, and we'll continue to do that and have hopefully a budget we can agree upon in the coming months.
Director DeWolf standing in for CNI, please.
Thank you.
Curriculum and instruction.
Thank you, President Harris. At this month's Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting, we talked about arts funding, which we'll chat about today as part of our action items. We also did a little bit of discussion around some minor policy work for policy 2024 and 2420, and then also started some light conversations just informationally around Superintendent Procedure 2015 as well as policies 2015, which is adoption of materials, and A02.00, which is performance management and research, which we've heard last year, and it's coming back to us a little bit more refined. And then finally, we heard a really exciting update on the progress of our ethnic studies, and there's an event on January 12th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at El Centro de la Raza. I think it's an informational event to get feedback and just begin the community design process of this work. And it's called Learning the Truth to Better the Youth. It's an SPS Ethnic Studies event. Certainly, I think a really exciting, inclusive curriculum that many folks in our community could greatly benefit from. And that's all I have.
Director Burke.
I'll bookend that with a looking forward. The next curriculum instruction policy meeting is January 15th. Key items on that, there are two board action reports coming forward, one for yearbook renewal, yearbook provider renewal, and approval of course catalog, new courses that are being approved for the subsequent years. We will be touching on standing agenda items. Will include instructional materials update on the science adoption, and how that's progressing and what that's going to look like in terms of piloting, and also on Since Time Immemorial. We will be talking about as Director DeWolf mentioned, some of the standing work. Policy 2015 on instructional materials adoptions. This is just a heads up to directors that staff will be reaching out to you for 2x2s to talk about that policy.
3x3s?
3x3s, 1x1s, whatever the mapping works out to. Individual meetings to help understand if there's any concerns with that before it comes back forward to the committee. And then there's community engagement taking place right now around Policy 2022, electronic resources and use of the internet. And this is specifically around the use of personal electronic devices and what schools are doing now, what are the pros and cons of that so that we can build it into policy. There's also an update on advanced learning and the work that's being done in the advanced learning and the advanced learning task force. And then finally, one of my personal favorites, the Cte Annual Plan is coming forward with an update from talking about the progress on that and some of our strategies and some of the work on those programs.
Can you elaborate on the community engagement for personal electronic devices, please?
Yeah, there's the avenues for that are the Information Technology Advisory Committee, reaching out to principals, reaching out to teachers through a survey, and then I believe the plan is also to just bring it to the student advisory panel. So I think 4 different channels of feedback to understand the impact of that.
Okay. Whoever's shepherding that, if they could send that information out in a separate send to the directors, it'd be much appreciated. And probably we want to discuss at some point whether parents and others would be included in that engagement. Hot topic, as it were. We met in executive committee, and we had 2 of our executive committee meeting members out of town, and Director Mack was kind enough to sit in. At executive committee, we have a standard agenda where we review the next legislative meetings and put things on the consent calendar, ask lots of questions, etc. And we were supposed to have an executive committee meeting today, but we didn't get it noticed properly, and we take that very, very seriously. So we will be revisiting that, board goals and work sessions early on in the next year, and our executive committee member at large, Director DeWolf, will be joining us. And welcome aboard. You will learn so much, you will have a headache, and you will find out about all the different levers and the wonderful unintended consequences. It was not a particularly, what's the word I want to say, striking meeting, but one of the things that we did do is we took a snapshot of field trips. Not scientific, but we are starting to broach the equity issues about what it looks like in one school vis-a-vis another school. It's a start. We're taking these issues about equity and funding and opportunity very, very seriously. And many thanks to the folks that are putting that information together, because it is difficult to find. And it's frankly quite stunning. I believe that's in the will be either in the executive committee agenda or with the meeting minutes attached, because again, we believe in transparency. But it is a first step. Okay, so we have no student comments this evening, and we move on to business action items. The consent agenda. May I have a motion?
I move
to put
approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Are there any items on the consent agenda that folks would like to have removed at this time? Seeing none, those in favor of passing the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And here we are, way ahead of schedule. It is 4:50. Public testimony starts at 5:30. 4:30. Mr. General Counsel, is it possible for us we can do board reports, but we're still going to have a big piece of time here. Is it possible to go to intro items prior to board testimony as opposed to action? Oh, we lost our podium and our mic.
Good evening, Noel Treat, Chief Legal Counsel. Yes, you do have the authority to modify your agenda to move the order of items around. I'd recommend that you do a motion to do that and move items prior to public testimony.
Okay, terrific. Well, let's move into board member reports and feedback, and let's make sure we keep them cogent, short, sweet, and yummy. Who would like to go first? Director Burke, you're up.
I will go very short and sweet because shortly after our last
Cogent
meeting,
and yummy.
I can't do cogent and yummy because shortly after our last meeting, I got on an airplane and left and just got back yesterday. So I just wanted to mention, share gratitude that my colleagues helped keep things going from the board point of view while I was out. So I appreciate that. And thank you especially to Director DeWolf for chairing CNI and subbing, and for Director Geary for joining as well to complete the quorum.
But I think it bears notice that you called in from South Africa at 4:30 in the morning for our work session on the budget.
They were cogent and juicy, so I did call in for the budget and board goals conversation. So I just wanted to let the public know that I will be scheduling my next community meeting in January, and that is all.
That was short and sweet. Director Geary.
Mine too will be very short and sweet. Since our last meeting, I've had the opportunity to once again visit the innovative schools in Tacoma, and then yesterday went and visited TAF in Federal Way, TAF at Sahali, and am just so impressed at the opportunity to visit these high schools that are very different than your comprehensive high school. Not shockingly so, not strangely so, but in ways that are really focused on creating relationships and engagement for students who have perhaps been historically underserved within their communities. And so I thank both of those communities. I thank the students that took the time to tour with us and talk about their programs. And I just invite people to learn more about what high school could look like, and be open to the idea that we can do more that is student-centric in the delivery of education. And in doing that, I think that we will keep kids engaged longer. And so to the extent that we've started a student advisory board and are welcoming those voices, I just really feel like it's a change. It's a game changer for us in terms of seeing outcomes change for our students. So again, I invite everybody to take the opportunity to visit those schools when it arises. And other than that, I'm just going to say I spent a significant amount of time down in California at my firstborn's graduation from UC Berkeley. He was a graduate from Ingram High School's International Baccalaureate program, and twice exceptional. And like many of the parents that we hear from, who get very frustrated with Seattle Public Schools around all the things and inconveniences and the moving around and the changing of the program, I have to say that my son received a fantastic education from Seattle Public Schools. It allowed him to graduate from Berkeley in 3.5 years in computer science. And so I'm going to thank Seattle Public Schools for what it contributed for my son's success. So keep breathing. I know sometimes we are frustrating. I know sometimes the pathway is not clear or even straight or easy. But if you hang in there with your student and you grab every opportunity you can for them, it can work. It can work. Just keep breathing. Tell them to keep breathing and keep moving forward. But I was so proud. My heart burst. So that was how I've spent my time.
Thank you.
Oh,
Who's
and
next?
just one more thing.
Please.
As we approach the winter break, I hope everybody takes that opportunity to spend time with their family, enjoy the time off from schools, reconnecting with the people that you love, eating really yummy food, and being warm and cozy. So have a wonderful break, and we'll see you in the new year.
Director Patu, proud grandmother, and why can't we get some of your grandchildren as Huskies? Go Dogs! What up?
Well, today has been a really exciting day. First of all, I actually had a chance to visit Dearborn Park, and I was very impressed with all the work that's going on. And I mean, it's amazing when you walk through all these classes and kids are at tests. And I told one of the teachers, this is really amazing. You know, when you walk through a class and every child is engaging in learning, which is a wonderful thing. Today was also exciting because my grandson actually signed with Cal. And we've been celebrating all day, and that's the reason why I was late.
We ratted
right,
you
go
out.
Bear. So it's been an amazing week, and I'm just trying to calm down and because it's been celebrating all week, and I was hoping that he would sign up with UW, but you know how that goes. So so I'm actually very happy to be here today, and I just want to say congratulations to Aaron for the hard work and being able to finally sign with a school that he wanted to go to.
Thank you, Betty. Okay, who's up next? Director Pinkham.
Since we're sharing family stories, Cte and Tascalawit, thank you. Good evening. Thank you to the MLK Elementary Choir. Thank you for the music. Wish they could stay here and kind of like hum in the background while we're doing this and help set the mood. My next community meeting won't be until January as well, so I have been contacted by some people in the community asking when my office hours were, but certainly I don't have office hours, but I'll let you know when my next community meeting is, so watch for it to be announced either at the next meeting or online when I get it scheduled. So my daughter is back from the Institute of American Indian Arts, where she took 5 classes where I thought, that's too many credits, but she's trying to graduate in 4 years. She had some credits to make up, and she looked at her report card today, all A's, A. And I said, where's the A pluses? She goes, they don't give A pluses. So she was happy to do that because the previous quarter she didn't get a good grade, and she was really sad, and I think that was kind of motivated her. Okay, can't let that happen again. And so, yeah, she got straight A's this past quarter, so back on the president's list. And then also got a shout out to my other daughter, Joanne. She was with North War Athletics in a basketball tournament this weekend down at Muckleshoot, their Muckleshoot Salmon Jam. They had 2 levels, one for, I think, 7, 8-year-olds, and then actually another level for 8th and 9th graders. She played with 8th and 9th graders, and they took 2nd place. They made it to the championship game and lost, which is okay because it was a team from Lapwai, my hometown reservation, that won the championship game. So kind of teetering on which team I was cheering for, but I was ultimately cheering for my daughter's team, but they lost. But she's got a nice jacket and stuff to go along with it. So I encourage other people that may be interested in Native Warrior Athletics. They do have basketball practice Tuesdays and Thursdays out at Robert Eaglestaff Gym, and on Sundays at Bitter Lake Community Center. So come out and join us. Katsayo, thank you.
Next up, Director DeWolf, please.
Thank you, President Harris. First, as a citizen of the Chippewa Cree Nation of Rocky Boy, Montana, I want to recognize that we are on stolen indigenous land. I'm honored to live, work, and serve in the Coast Salish territories in the city of Chief Sealth, who was a descendant of the Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and Duwamish. Really haven't had a lot of out in the district visits this last couple of weeks, but we're really excited to continue working on the community workforce agreements, which has now been endorsed by our Washington State Superintendent, Chris Reichdahl. Also looking forward to refining our board goals. As a preview, had some really great developments around community engagement, and hope we'll get to officially move some of our work sessions out into the community. And then also thanks to the Alliance for Education for supporting our most vulnerable students at each school with a $2 million Right Now Needs Fund. Really excited to see how that supports our students with those needs. And finally, I wanted to just call something in for our own internal analysis here at John Stanford Center for Educational Excellence. Our American education system has genealogy we can trace back to racism. And for all of our great intentional work to address and be an anti-racist organization, we sometimes fall short and continue to hurt and cause distrust with our staff of color. We must do a better job listening to our employees who so bravely share their stories of microaggressions to blatant racism. For all staff at Seattle Public Schools, be on alert. We will not tolerate intolerance. We will not accept a staff that doesn't work every day to examine their privilege, implicit bias, and unconscious racism. It is 2018, and I believe in you to work towards a more just and racially inclusive district. I hope we'll own a new mantra, acknowledge, reconcile, and restore. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Mack.
Good evening again. I got to have my community meeting last week, and a pretty good turnout. I think around 8 or 9 folks came. Folks brought a number of different issues around school safety, behavioral health, special ed, boundaries, pathways, questions, including, when is the community engagement going to start for some of the boundaries that we put off till next year, wanting to kind of start getting engaged and thinking about those things early. What I really enjoyed about that, and I hope folks know that they're welcome to come, you don't have to be in my district to come to my community meeting, is that we are all talking together and sharing, the challenges that we're bringing forward and listening to each other, and it's really helpful to me to hear that. So please do feel welcome. My next meeting is January 12th at 11 o'clock at the Magnolia Public Library. I really do appreciate hearing and being able to listen and really hear the lived experience and how that folds into the decision making that we do here. I wanted to mention a couple things that you've already gotten on your calendars or sent out in emails, that there's an admissions school fair planned for January 19th, which it's at Mercer Middle School. It's all day, 10 to 2. That's a place to go learn about what other options exist in the district. And a big happy holidays to everyone. We're going on break here. And I hope it'll be restful and pleasant. And I also know that this time of year is challenging for a lot of folks. I want to acknowledge that, and that continuing to be kind to yourself and to others during this time is important. And I hope you enjoy your break, and looking forward to the comments tonight and the conversations we have around the packed agenda we have.
Okay, I'm up. Last but hopefully not least. My next community meetings are December 21st. That's this Saturday, 3 to 5 at the Southwest Library. 33% chance of getting lasagna. The next one will be January 19th at the Delridge Library. Couple of shout outs, if I might. A shout out to Brent Jones and his team for the new background for the speaker's podium, which is policy 010. I think that it's really going to pop beautifully behind our speakers, and how appropriate that is. Thank you very much. I hope at some point we will have a billboard size formula for success as well. And I'm going to keep whining until we get it. Last Sunday, the West Seattle collaboration of interested parents, community members, and PTSAs met together at the High Point Library to talk about race and equity and needs in the area. It was facilitated brilliantly. Most of our schools were represented, 3 hours, a great deal of sharing. And this is a group that has organically come together to talk about what our needs are, and the fact that we're more powerful when we speak in a group, and we get to, as Director DeWolf put it, when we get to check our privilege and explain how it's different from school to school and different backgrounds. It was really healthy, and and it follows along some of the goals that I have. We don't have it set up yet, and there's some concern about, I know costs. Walking into a new year, $45 million deficit. Can't say that enough. $45 million deficit, and that's if the levies pass on February 12th. Want to have organized interview training on a weekend, invite all of the all schools and parents so that as we move into hiring season for both principals and teachers, and I appreciate that we need collaboration with the SCA as well, our very valued and trusted partners, so that folks that are working for a living can come together, we can get the training, we can be on the same page, we know what questions to ask, what questions not to ask. This is one of those ways to implement our transparency and our community engagement. Is it frustrating probably for staff saying, oh my Lord, what does Harris want to do out there? Well, perhaps so, but we're more than happy to be the pilot program. And again, I'm going to whine till we get it. And it's a good thing. If we make the circle bigger, we'll make better decisions. Yesterday, as Director Geary mentioned, we went out to the Technology Access Foundation at Sahali High School in Federal Way, met with Trish DeZico. Several folks in this building know her, and I hope respect her as much as I do. They are doing amazing things, and we're looking at new models as well. We should, because we would not be leaders if we were satisfied with the status quo. So stay tuned on that. Also went to Louisa Boren, K-8, met with their PTSA, and I'm more than pleased to tell you that their PTSA spent an hour and a half on questions, took advantage of the fact that I was there just to get an endorsement for our OPS levy and our BEX 5 levy. But they did in fact endorse, and they endorsed unanimously. And I'm very proud of that fact. Other than that, I want to take the segue from Director Mack. I'm wearing a Santa hat to have a little levity here, but the holidays are extremely difficult for a lot of folks. Away from family, without resources, depression is real. Be sensitive to that. Bring folks into your home. And if you don't have a place to go for Christmas dinner, you can join my crazy family, and you get good food and cheap entertainment. On that note, let's take a 10-minute break. Come back here at 5:20, and then we'll move into an intro item before public testimony starts on the dot at 5:30. Thank you.